opinion, so I should say, welcome to your capital. I'm your governor.
North Carolina.
Thank you for voting for me. Say again?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Is that the good Carolina?
Yes.
Yes. Any South Carolinians present? Oh, none. Well, then unanimous, sir. North Carolina. How old are you?
10.
10.
Turning 11 in September.
Turning
7th.
11 in September. Round of applause for your early natal day. What's your name?
Master Ezra Master Ezra Donaldson.
Master what?
Ezra Donaldson.
Ezra.
Ezra.
Yes,
a
Ezra
pleasure
Donald.
to meet you, Ezra.
Yes.
Master Ezra.
Yes, I've started watching one of your videos, but we couldn't even finish it.
You started watching one of my videos.
Yes, your snapshot of it said this is a snapshot of Thomas Jefferson, and then it showed a few snapshots and it said not that one.
Oh, yes,
Not
yes.
that one.
I remember that. It's strange, you know. Fran, can you read, young Ezra?
Yes, I
You
can.
I say it's interesting that you've found perhaps some videos via Dr. Google. Nonetheless, I say that man might become immortal if only he chooses to write his thoughts down.
Yes, indeed.
And thus, you might find
Some-
through these videos some immortality, some living through ad infinitum.
Yes, sometimes I do write my thoughts down.
You write your words down very good.
Sometimes. Yes,
You know, when I
sometimes.
was 10 years old, the same age that you are, my father handed me a musket. Do you know what a musket is?
Yes, I do.
Yes, a long gun.
Yes.
My father handed me a musket with the lead ball inside, and he said, "Go out into terra incognita and do not come back without a prize."
What does terra incognita?
Incognita.
What is that?
What is terra incognita? Do you you shall have your first Latin lesson with Mr. Jefferson. Is this amenable?
Yes.
Terra incognita is Latin. Terra meaning earth. Incognita meaning unknown. So terra incognita is unknown.
Territory.
Unknown
Earth.
territory. Very
Yes,
good.
unknown Earth or unknown territory.
Round of applause again for young Ezra.
The wilderness.
So my father handed me a musket, the lead ball inside, told me to go into terra incognita and do not come back without a prize, he said. You know what he meant by prize?
Yes.
Yes, what?
A shot animal.
A shot animal.
Yes.
I searched for many hours for a prize that I could happily drape across my very broad 10-year-old shoulders to bring back to Peter Jefferson, my father. And eventually I found a bird that was all fouled up in some brambles. These are the jokes. I brought the bird alive back to my father. Do you believe this was what he expected?
No.
No. My father told me as much, and I told him that you did not tell me that the prize must be dead. I also told him, I have brought you the prize, and the lead ball is still in my musket. That's a win-win. It was then that my father perhaps told me that someday, Thomas, you'll make a very fine attorney.
I do ask, what is an attorney?
What is an attorney? You are full of questions. This is going to be a delightful 35 minutes for you.
Yes.
An attorney is one who has studied the law, and thus necessarily studied some Latin, perhaps some Greek, perhaps French and Italian. Studied not just our Virginia law, as this is the jurisdiction for this territory, but also when we were attached to the crown, the Magna Carta, which is that great charter that was begun in 1215.
Is Magna Carta Latin also?
It is indeed, sir. Magna Carta, something like a great charter, which I have also said. So there's your second lesson for you.
Yes.
Equally, it was our obligation to study common law. This is various people's various systems of laws amalgamated into one common law. Now, once you study this with a mentor, my mentor was Mr. George Wythe.
Yes, I know.
You know George Wythe?
Yes, I do know. I have heard of him, and I do, and I have led to be known that, and I am known that, and I do know that you were his student.
I was his student, indeed. You know a great deal of my life. Perhaps we should join each other on the dais. George Wythe for 3 years. There's no set length of time a man may study law. There's no curriculum. That's dangerous. It is simply a conversation between you and your mentor, and when you both feel that you're ready to take the exam, the oral examination given mostly in Greek and Latin upon the precedent of Virginia law, common law, Magna Carta, etc., then they will sign off next to your name. You must have 2 attorneys present, at least 2, you can't have more. One of the attorneys present at my examination, passing the bar, was Mr. George...
Washington.
Not Washington.
No, With.
With. Mr. George With.
I keep getting
My
that.
teacher, so I had an in. The other attorney examining me was my first cousin,
Your first cousin?
so I passed.
In other words, it was a relative.
Nonetheless, North Carolina, the reason that I began this conversation with you, young Ezra, is because my father, Peter Jefferson, who sent me with that musket out into terra incognita, also helped fix the boundary between North Carolina and Virginia on an expedition, so say the men of the expedition, through territory so dismal as to strike terror into the heart of every man.
Dismal.
That sounds like North Carolina, does it not?
What does dismal mean?
Dismal, terrible, awful, dreadful.
Hostile.
Hostile indeed. In fact, the men of the expedition said we knew not what creatures we might come across. There are great beasts and dismal swamps. Every day is full of terrors, and the nights were worse. And my father taught the men to discover water, to subsist solely on the raw flesh of beasts, and to sleep in trees to escape beasts and Indians. You can find his map. It's so-called the Fry-Jefferson map, or the Jefferson-Fry map, depending on whose family you're from. Have you heard this?
Yes.
It's a lie. I mean it. Dash it away. This is an erroneous opinion. I know not where man gets our collective history, but sometimes we get the thing wrong. I don't know if you know this. After all, we called the 7 Years' War the 7 Years' War, but it lasted 9 years. Also called the French and Indian War, but it was not between the French or the Indians. So let us posit into our minds that this consternation with our mother country was not about taxes, and for proof I should say this. The phrase that was bandied about in 65 was how does that go? No taxation, how does this go?
No taxation without representation.
Very good, out of the mouth of babes. No taxation without representation. What's the most important word in that phrase?
Representation.
Representation. If our consternation with our mother country were about taxes, wouldn't the phrase be no taxation, period? Yes? The most important word is representation. And if you've read our Magna Carta, the Great Charter, which no doubt you do, you gather the family together every Christmastide around a fire and you pull out the Great Charter and read it from stem to stern, yes?
We'll add it to the list.
In the Magna Carta it says that we as Britons cannot be taxed except by men whom we elect. Except by men whom we elect. We cannot elect members of Parliament. Have any of you ever elected a member of Parliament?
No.
So can Parliament tax us?
No.
No. Where did the Stamp Act come from? Parliament. Do we see the problem?
Yes.
Couldn't have timed that better. The death knell. The death knell began in 65. This consternation was about rights. And for further proof, not just the phrase, no taxation without representation, but I should offer you this. If this consternation were about taxes, then why didn't we rebel and protest 150 years ago? We have been Britons upon this soil for so long, we have been taxed for so long, but by men whom we have elected, not by Parliament. Parliament saw the error of their ways. They repealed the Stamp Act in 66. 1 year later. Huzzah! Yes?
Yes.
In 66, we were looking forward to another 150 years of happy British rule on this soil. That was the one bit of sand in our oyster. And nonetheless, we had hope that we might contain this one problem in an area, and we might continue within our mutual systems of consanguinity with our brethren across the water. It did not happen because in the same day that Parliament repealed the Stamp Act, they passed another nefarious, malicious bit of business called the Declaratory Act. You know this one?
Yes. Paint, glass, and there was paint, glass.
Paint, glass. I'm
Multi-
going to pause you for a moment. You are slightly ahead of time. In 66, the Declaratory Act said, Parliament passed, said, Parliament has the right to, quote, legislate for all of the colonies, comma, in all cases, comma, whatsoever, period. Parliament has the right to legislate for all the colonies in all cases whatsoever. That bit of business does no immediate harm to us, but it certainly laid the groundwork for future taxes like what you are speaking of, young Ezra. These taxes came in many forms, not just on paint and other goods, but also in one moment there was a company that was going bankrupt, and our government, Parliament, in their infinite wisdom chose to